Hello, and welcome to this edition of Careers in Psychology video series. My name is Dr. John McCarthy. I am a professor of psychology in the Department of Liberal Arts at RIT Dubai. And this video series is for those students at RIT interested in the psychology program and wanting to learn more about career options. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Mr. James Lafferty. Mr. Lafferty is the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of Fine Hygienic Holding. He is a leading global expert on areas such as business building, marketing and branding, and organizational development. And Mr. Lafferty has an undergraduate degree in psychology. Mr. Lafferty, thanks so much for joining me today. I truly appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
And if I may ask, you have an undergraduate degree in psychology. What drew you to the field of psychology as an undergraduate student?
Well, let me go back to leaving high school. I went to a very academically rigorous high school. Everybody went into science. And I think that at that time, asking 18-year-old kids to pick what they want to do for the rest of their life is probably one of the more foolish ventures that our society has created. Now, because I went to that high school and because of everybody else, I went into engineering, metallurgical engineering as an undergraduate. And basically, I hated every minute of it. And I felt that college was a time where you're supposed to enjoy your classes and that. And so after doing some co-op, I went to the University of Cincinnati, which does a cooperative program where you, starting in your second year of university, you actually get jobs in the field. After doing a bit of co-op in engineering, I found out that I hated engineering even more than I thought. And so I basically decided that I needed to not be in engineering. And if this was a decision for the rest of my life, I got to figure this out. So I took a range of classes and I fell in love with the psych classes. Now, on top of loving the subject and loving the debates and loving the discussion, loving the soft nature of psychology. I mean, chemistry is an exact science. Human behavior is not. We'd like to think it is, but it's not an exact science. I loved the subjective and objective nature of psychology. It's a beautiful blend of both. On top of that, I felt that being effective with people in some shape or form and having a deeper understanding of people was only going to be helpful to me in my life. Now, I didn't know that whether I wanted to be in psychology proper or do something else, but I realized that psychology would serve me no matter where I went, and I fell in love with the subject. And because I loved it, my grades were great, and I graduated with an undergraduate degree. I did not go on to graduate school. But I graduated with an undergraduate degree after 4.5 years.
And Mr. Lafferty, as I mentioned in the introduction, you are a Chief Executive Officer. You are an expert in terms of business building, marketing, branding, organizational development. How does your position connect to psychology?
The connection is 100%. And I'm in the world of consumer goods and understanding how consumers behave. I'm also have an organization of 3,000 people and believing that people are the backbone of any successful operation. I am practicing psychological principles that I learned in school 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There cannot be a more useful major for being out there in the world today. I use the principles there. I could tell stories of marketing, stories of getting the right advertising. And, my general observation, I'll give you guys a few fun facts. When I was graduating in the US, I interviewed with the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, and they told me in the interview, and I also interviewed with the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had, at that time, a full fellowship to get my PhD, but I was exploring options. So I was interviewing. I also had graduate school was already done and completely, I had already had the formal offer to study and get my PhD. So the CIA and FBI told me that the best agents, they've done correlation studies. Why did they go after psych majors? Because they made the best field agents. And now that I'm in it, I'm not surprised. I mean, I would say in general, when people study psychology, they inherently have an interest in human beings and how they behave. That makes them very attuned to the world. And if you look in the world today, the top business leaders, they'll tell you that the most important skills are skills that are difficult to teach. Like, for example, Warren Buffett will tell you the number one skill you need is EQ, or the intelligence, the emotional intelligence quotient. How well you understand other people. That's like the most important thing they're looking for, people that can work with other people. And we're in a world that's gone digital where, many people, they can be on a cell phone and they can clack on their fingers and send texts and WhatsApps, but you put them in front of humans and they're awful. And they can't manage within a team. They can't operate within a team. I see this all the time. And so when you get a psych major, you get people that are naturally attuned to this. It gives them a competitive advantage. When I was leaving, when I left engineering, all the engineers laughed at me. My school was the top 25 engineering school in the world. They're like, well, why would you go and be in psych major? You're not even going to get a job. And it's funny how it all played out. I later went into Procter & Gamble in marketing. I was hired in marketing right away. And I rose up and by the time I was 35 years old, I was a CEO in Procter & Gamble. And a bunch of the engineers from my school were in my organization. And I used to go back to my college campus and talk to the psych majors. I said, let the engineers laugh. Because what happened with me is after 15 years, they laughed at me on year one. And then by year 15, I was all their bosses. I was their boss. So it was because the skill set of knowing how to lead teams, knowing how to motivate people, knowing how to interpret consumer behavior, develop great advertising, was the skills that took you to the top versus rote mathematical calculations and following formulas. And so, don't ever think for a second you are in one of the great fields and one of the great majors in the world today. And, people like me with just an undergrad in psych, I'm the number one executive in this company of 3,000 people.
Mr. Lafferty, with your achievements, with your experience, with your undergraduate degree in psychology, what advice would you offer someone who is majoring in psychology today?
Two pieces of advice. Advice number one is get the grades. It's always funny. I graduated number one in my class, and I didn't mess on the grades. I was summa cum laude, 3.87 GPA out of 4, and this was before you could get over a 4 to bring your GPA up. Still don't understand how it works. It was the highest you could get was a 4. I finished at 3.87. Now, you'll get people that come in, I'll interview them, and they won't have good grades. And they'll always say to me, well, yeah, but I didn't get good grades, but I'm actually the smartest guy in the class. And my response back is always, if you're really that smart, why didn't you figure out that grades matters in university? I mean, I saw from job one, I knew high school grades didn't matter much, but college grades matter. And when I got to college, I made sure I nailed it and I got A's almost every time because this was important. The first thing you got to do is nail the grades. And you got to do well in your classes and listen to your professors and follow them. The second thing is you have to make a big decision in your life. Do you want psychology proper as a life, or do you want to do what I call applied psychology? Now, psychology proper means you're going to go and get your master's and maybe your PhD, and you're going to practice in the field. You're going to go to clinical psychology or human factor psychology or social psychology. Whatever the field, you're going to get a PhD or master's, and you're going to stay in that field and maybe teach or do research, and maybe you're hired for a company to work in human factors, which is looking at, what's the kind of lighting that impacts human behavior and certain color schemes, and how should you, those are very interesting subjects. And that there's many programs that have PhD fields. In my time, it was called human factor psychology. Now, that's a decision. I looked at it, I decided not to do that. I decided to go applied psychology, which is working in fields and in jobs where you must practice great psychology every single day of your life and what you do. And I went into marketing in consumer goods, where it's all a mix of art and science. It's a mix of subjective and objective. Developing great advertising is ideas and understanding what humans are thinking about and how to put it together. It's a complete mix of both a science and a soft form of art. That psychology, just like the whole function of and subject of psychology is. And then I started with a team of 2 people, and now it's 3,000. I've had as many as 6,000 people in my previous jobs. It's all about feeling the organization, smelling the organization, what's happening in the organization, what needs to be done and not done, keeping people motivated, finding ways to help people stretch deeper. This is all understanding human behavior, human motivation. A negative of psych degree is you can do just about everything. The positive of psych is you can do just about everything, but your life is going to be wide open. So you have to make those decisions, whether you want to be in psych or be in psych really by having like psychology on your business card. See, I don't have psychology on my business card. My business card says Chief Executive Officer, but I'm in psychology. Other people's business card says I'm a professor of psychology, or I'm a staff psychologist at this, this facility, where you're going to be in psych no matter what you do the rest of your life. The question is do you want to be in, or do you want to be really in? That's the big decision. And no matter which way you go, you won't make a mistake. It's what you want. It's not there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's about your happiness and your fulfillment.
Mr. James Lafferty, Chief Executive Officer of Fine Hygienic Holding. It has been a pleasure to be with you today, and I really appreciate you sharing your insights with our students. Thank you so very much, Mr. Lafferty.
No problem. Thank you for having me.